Hey, we want to welcome everybody to another episode of You in the Law podcast show where we are streaming live on Facebook Live. We're also streaming live on our YouTube channel, You in the Law on YouTube, and we're also streaming live on LinkedIn. So hopefully everybody will tune in and join us for another very informative topic tonight on the podcast show. I am one of the co-hosts of the show, Virgil Green, and the bearded guy sitting over there with this, I don't know what kind of hat he's got on tonight, goes by the name of Chief Swaggy One.
Well, it's a hat that you don't have on. So that's the type of hat. That's the type of hat I got. A one that you don't have, or one that you don't own. What's going on, brother?
Well, not a whole lot, sir. How you doing?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. I'm good. It's cold.
All right.
I know it's cold. Where
Yeah,
cold.
man. Yeah, man. I'm not digging this Minnesota weather, brother.
Yeah.
It's been snowing here for like 2 or 3 days. Not bad, but not something that you can really get adjusted to coming from Oklahoma City.
Yeah, I understand, man. I understand.
Yeah. So tonight, man, we got a topic that we're going to be talking about: racism and violence inside council meetings, Keith. And we've all seen these YouTube videos where these elected officials who are supposed to be showing up to make public policy, to pass budgets, they are there's some racial overtones, there's some violence in these council meetings where council members have been arrested by the police at the council meetings. And so, we're going to talk about this because these are the people who are supposed to lead local government. But law enforcement officers have to come in and make arrests. And oftentimes you see these council members or you hear these council members threatening these officers that if you arrest me, then you won't have a job. So this puts police officers in a very odd situation because if there's an actual crime that has taken place, they need to arrest whether it's a council member or even the mayor who's been elected, Keith.
Well, that's why a lot of city charters have provisions that talk about city councilmen, board of directors, commissioners have no right in dealing with personnel issues. So it's against city charters, county charters, to allow someone who is sitting on a council board or local government board to have any say so regarding an officer's, whether an officer is terminated or hired. And so there are those provisions. Do they always follow those provisions? Absolutely not. I'll tell you, it's very difficult, especially if you have a city manager council form of government, when you have the council members that are putting pressure on the city manager to get rid of a police chief or police officer, and it comes down to my job or your job. Now, are they going to have those discussions in person? Absolutely not. Do they have those discussions behind the scenes? Absolutely. So it does put a lot of pressure on law enforcement to how do you handle these situations? Do you treat people differently because they are technically your bosses? Technically, they've been elected by the citizens of those cities, counties, states, or whomever to make the laws. And so can it be perceived that you work for them? Absolutely. So that does put law enforcement in a very, very tricky situation sometimes when we have these incidents involving violence at these type of meetings or functions.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Keith, I want to remind everybody who's just now tuning into the podcast tonight. Topic is racism and violence inside council meetings, and the odd situation that it puts police officers who are maybe have been assigned to a council meeting, or maybe who have been called because of some type of disturbance at a council meeting that ultimately may lead to somebody being arrested. And so, we want to, if we definitely want to get our listeners to tune in and chat with us about this here and throughout the podcast show. And just to remind you that if you miss any parts of this podcast, our podcast shows are uploaded to our podcast social media platforms. We're on Anchor. We're on Spotify. We're on Google Podcasts. We've just been added to the Amazon Music podcast platform. So wherever you tune in to listen to whatever your favorite podcast, you can definitely find this favorite podcast, You and the Law Podcast Show. So Keith, I've got a couple of found a couple of interesting videos that going to kind of play throughout the podcast. So,
hey, Virgil, can I say something before you go to those podcasts?
Yeah, yes, sir. Go ahead.
So, and another thing I think the listeners should know, there are those meetings that happen behind the scene where the police chief's boss, and sometimes police chiefs are telling their officers, you can't arrest those individuals.
Yeah.
And the question comes up, even if they are violating the law, you can't arrest those individuals. So they make it very vague, instead of saying, well, I'm not telling you that you better not, but I'm just kind of giving you a warning. So those type of conversations go on too behind the scenes.
Yeah, exactly, Keith. And you and I both know, I mean, we've worked for, several different types of form of government, whether you got a strong mayor form of government or you got a city manager form of government. And, there's oftentimes you've seen city managers put a lot of pressure on the police chief to do certain things. And if you've got a strong mayor form of government, it only takes the mayor to terminate or remove the police chief. So we are definitely put in some situations where you've got to think about your job, but you also got to think about how the law applies to what has just occurred. Because as you know, nobody is above the law. And I think, we have definitely seen people after January the 6th who feel like they are above the law.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Keith, in the listeners, so we're going to play this video here. And this is a disturbing video that's coming out of, I believe, out of South Carolina, where this council member uses some racial slurs during a council meeting.
Have him removed. Have him removed now.
In this video, Tarrant Council member Tommy Bryant can be seen being escorted out of Monday night's council meeting.
No one expects to come and do their job and to be berated and insulted and degraded like that.
As tension boiled over during the meeting, Bryant can be heard calling the city clerk a pig.
When a smart man and a pig argue, both of them get the stuff all over them.
No, you're out of order. Hold up, no.
I asked Bryant what he meant by the comment over the phone today.
Then I just made a comment that you just don't argue. When you argue, people they think you're an idiot if you argue, and that's what I was saying was there ain't no need in us arguing.
According to Mayor Wayman Newton, the exchange of words started after Bryant claims he was not aware of a special meeting called in October.
City council members were notified via text message.
The city clerk even claimed during last night's meeting that Bryant acknowledged the meeting.
To get your story straight, you're new.
Please
you're
don't.
Don't be a puppet for the mayor.
Mayor Newton immediately kicked him out of the meeting.
Don't touch me. No, I don't. Don't touch me.
Bryant has been no stranger to making loud outbursts during council meetings.
Do we have a house in here?
Back in July, he could be heard saying a racial slur during a public meeting.
All I did was tell the people exactly what the mayor called Veronica.
Tommy lives in his own world, and he thinks that he's above the law.
Well, as you mentioned, this isn't the first time Councilor Tommy Bryant has come under fire.
That's right, Guy. Actually, Lieutenant Governor Will Ainsworth and the NAACP all called for Bryant to step down after his last outburst.
So what happens next?
Well, according to the mayor, they are going to vote to censure the Bryant at the next council meeting, and that just means that they will express publicly that they no longer stand behind anything he says or does.
Well, Keith, you know, I think that was probably one of the most disturbing videos that I'm going to be playing today, because clearly this man has no respect for Black women and no respect for any woman when he called this lady, you know, a pig. And so and then the most concerning thing is when he stands up and he uses the N-word. He doesn't just say the N-word. He says, do we have a house full of N's in here? And so obviously, you know, we saw the police officer handcuffing him and removing him from the council meeting. These are things that police officers have to deal with and expect. And what's even more concerning, Keith, is when you've got a white council member who obviously has some racial issues, and you've got a Black police officer who has to step in and handcuff him, and you heard him say, "You're not, you know, don't you touch me."
Well, Virgil, I'll tell you, it's gotten to the point, even on local government, you have individuals who think that they're above the law. I mean, you know, people have to realize that a council meeting, commissioners meeting on the local level is a formalized public meeting. And there are state laws that prohibit outbursts or any kind of disruptions during those type of hearings. I mean, there are laws on the books, whether it's state law that says that you're prohibited from disrupting a public meeting, whether it's disorderly conduct on the local level. There are laws, and that applies to everyone. I think a lot of times people, I'm getting really tired of this First Amendment thing that people throw up all the time, that I have a right to my First Amendment right. You don't have a right to be disruptive, and you don't have a right to cause people to be at awe. You know, it goes back to that same philosophy. Yeah, you have freedom of speech, but you don't have the right to yell fire in a crowded theater or something that will alarm people. And so I think people really need to learn what the First Amendment says. It doesn't give you the right to be to threaten people. It doesn't give you the right to be disruptive. I'm sorry. That is just and that's what people really believe in. And guys like you know, people like this gentleman here, I'm following my First Amendment rights. And it puts us in a position, because you'll see that I've seen that in many councils, especially if a hot topic item is on the agenda, and then you'll have a lot of people come in, and it's going to be disruptive. I mean, you're going to have someone on the dais say something that people are going to agree with, and people are going in the audience. But it is really bad, Virgil, when the individuals on the dais, when the local government officials actually get into it with citizens, and I've actually almost seen them go to blows at a meeting, just based on so much dislike and disrespect for each other.
Yeah. Well, and you know, and I think this is something that, you know, this isn't something new, Keith. You know, this is something that has happened, has been going on for a number of years. And it just seems like in the last couple of years, you have individuals who feel more bolder to attack minorities because, for once, they are, you know, like this last video we saw, the mayor was a recently elected mayor of that city. So they had never had a Black mayor before. And so now you've got a white council member who obviously doesn't like that. And him and this mayor have had other encounters with each other where, Keith, the mayor was actually arrested because of an encounter with this council member. So but it was basically the police ended up. Obviously, the charges were later dropped, but it just goes to show you that even on a local level, whether it's a city council meeting or a school board meeting or a county commissioners meeting, these people who are elected are supposed to be showing up to do the work of the citizens, but they're
Virgil,
taking their anger. Yeah.
Well, Virgil, what makes you think, and to the listeners, what would make anyone think that if they were disruptive on a local level, they wouldn't be disruptive on a federal, state, county, federal level? That kind of stuff just doesn't start overnight, and
Correct.
It comes back to power. People thinking their authority is above, when they have authority or a title, that they're above, the laws don't apply. I've seen it more so when I was in Little Rock. And people ask, is there a certain segment of a community that does not like to see a person of color in a certain position, especially when it's a position of authority? I think we saw and heard the answer to that in 2008 through 2016.
Correct.
I think we've seen it more so in 2020, when you had individuals calling law enforcement officers during the insurrection, calling police officers by their, the N-word. Some of the things that we've heard, the comments that have been made about individuals who are running for office and in positions. So I think that those type of things it's nothing new, but I think it's become more and more amplified over the last, especially I would say over the last 4 years, last 6 or 7 years, but more so over the last 12 to 14 years. But it puts us in a bad position because we have a job to do, and we're put in the middle of it. And sometimes being put in the middle means you are enforcing the law, taking laws against the person who signs your checks, or people who are deciding on what the budget is going to look like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, hey, Keith, I want to remind the listeners that tonight's podcast is racism and violence inside of council meetings. And we actually have listening on the podcast, Sarah Banner, who is a newly elected councilwoman to the Midwest City Council in Midwest City, Oklahoma. So we definitely thank her for tuning in to join us. And Sarah, if you got any comments, if you would like to say anything, please do so in the chat. And so we definitely would like to hear from you.
Can I say something about Sarah?
Yeah, go ahead.
Sarah's a strong activist, but one thing I will say about Sarah, she's very respected. She's very passionate. I've never seen Sarah get to the point where she has been disruptive and to the point that she has, been so disruptive that meetings have had to stop or been delayed or anything like that. So there's a way that you have a right to express your First Amendment rights. And I will say that Sarah is definitely one of those that could write a book on how to do it the right way.
Yeah, exactly. And she's sharing the podcast with a lot of people who follow her. Connie Johnson, who ran for governor in Oklahoma. She's also a former senator for Oklahoma. And I see so many other names, Milton Combs and Miss Baker and Mark Falk and Sean Cummings. So hopefully those that she shared our podcast with will tune in and join us, because I think this is a very important topic, because if you're not in tune with your local city government, these are the people who are making policies that impact your livelihood, your quality of life.
You're right. I'm going to give you an example of one, and I'm not going to say a name or a city, but a mentor of mine was put in a very difficult situation probably about 12 years ago as a police chief. I mean, he's at a council meeting because as a police chief and a department head, pretty much have to attend all of the council meetings. And he's at a council meeting, and one of the council members was very disruptive. I mean, to the point that the police chief had to actually escort him off and handcuff him and arrest him. But what I want to say about my mentor, he was very professional. He handled business. As a matter of fact, he was complimented by the local media and others there how professional he was, even though this person was talking about, I'm going to fire you, you don't know who I am, and things like that. So, you know, these things, can you just imagine you're there and this happens, and you have to take actions because people are looking at you, Virgil.
They are.
Okay, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
And it's a shame, and to the listeners, depending on the nature of the topics that are going to be discussed at these meetings, sometimes you have to have a number of law enforcement officers there to ensure that things don't happen, because it has gotten to the point. There was a point in time when you did not have someone from the dais going back and forth with citizens. Now it's a common fact that citizens and members of the dais go back and forth to the point of almost, and in some situations, there have been blows thrown in those situations. And I think there even may have been a situation at a school board meeting several years ago where a gentleman fired a weapon.
Exactly, it did.
At the dais. So these meetings do get out of control depending on the nature of the incident and the relationship that the individuals have. And the funny thing about it is, it's very interesting to see the dynamics of people who dislike each other have to come together to work, because each and every one of those people are going to need something from the other. They're going to have something that they want to be passed, and they're going to have the others to have vote. But just some of the things that you see at these meetings and these study sessions, and then there are those individuals who put a show on for the camera. The plotting and things that go on behind the scenes and stuff like that. So it doesn't surprise me that these incidents and these events are getting more and more violent. I think this is just the beginning of what we're going to see over the next few years. Yeah, exactly, Keith. Well, hey, I want to remind those who are just now tuning into the podcast that tonight's topic, we're talking about racism and violence inside of council meetings, and how this has impacted those police officers who are maybe assigned to work that council meeting, or who may have been called because of some type of disturbance at the council meeting, where they are put in situations where they're threatened with their jobs by those elected officials, that if they do put their hands on them, that they're going to do everything they can to make them lose their jobs. And so they're putting in some very uncomfortable situations. And so, Keith, this is something that has really happened quite a bit around the country. And so I've got another video that I want to show to you and the listeners.
Get you out of here. I want him gone. Because I'm not going to be sitting in the meeting told to shut the F up. Who you think you talking to? Because I'm about ready to cuss you out. No, you need to get out of this meeting. Scott, you going to condone it?
We didn't.
It's recorded. You got people on live feed him telling me to shut the F up just because somebody hide behind you. I heard.
Get out.
Did I say what?
I didn't say nothing.
I got a problem with it. I got a problem with it.
Finance committee.
I want him out.
It's adjourned.
Sharon, what you want? I want him out.
I'm just shocked by
Because he ain't going to disrupt me telling me to shut the F up, because I can cuss better than the rest of them. You don't tell me what to do. No, you going to get out of mine. Now, I'm just telling you, you ain't going to do it in here. What if I don't get out? What if I don't get out?
Mr. Mayor, you tell me what's going to happen, bro.
Now, will y'all please deal with this? If he want to make an issue,
I didn't hear it.
I heard him. You ain't got to hear him. If I cuss you out, do he have to hear you?
Well, I wouldn't suggest.
Well, I wouldn't suggest he gonna do that here. Did you hear you a pastor? I know you heard it. And everybody on Facebook heard it. I shouldn't need no president or no chairman to tell you that somebody can't come in here cussing me out. No, I'm not the only one acting up. I'm responding to somebody saying, get the F out of my face. No, it ain't gonna be. You threatening me an elected official. It's a third-degree felony. It's a third-degree felony to threaten an elected official, sir. You gonna condone this? No, don't stay out of it. I'm gonna call the chief. Somebody ain't gonna stay out of it.
Boys on now.
My mama dead. Call your mama, white man. My mama dead.
You out of order.
No, he out of order talking about call my mama. My mama dead, mama. You better watch yourself. Don't talk about my mama to me. Call your mama, white man. Call your mama. Y'all talking crazy. Call your mama. Don't you never tell me to call my mama. My mama dead. I understand you, old white man, with your racist butt. I'm tired of hearing Kate Fields. These white folks say, call your mama. Call your mama. I said I'm calling the chief. Don't tell me to call my mama. White man. I'm about tired of these folks. You, Woodson, Kate Fields, this is a racist nasty time. Call your mama, white man. Well, you shouldn't have did. If they want to play these games with Woodson and Kate Fields and him, you call.
Wow, man. So that was a video from 2017 in Flint, Michigan. Now, the guy who is doing all of the cursing is still on the city council in Flint, Michigan. So this is the way.
What cursing? Huh? I didn't hear no cursing.
You didn't?
It's time, man.
you know, and you heard him say he's going to call the police chief. So you got these council members who feel like they have the number, a direct number to the police chief. And so now that police chief back in 2017, if he ever got a phone call from that council member, was put in the middle of something that he wasn't even present at. And so, you know, out of all of the videos that I have watched preparing for this show, Flint, Michigan has got a lot of problems, brother. And it has been exposed to the world of just how dysfunction that city government is in Flint, Michigan. And Keith, you remember Flint, Michigan has had all these problems with their water. So can you imagine? These are the people who are supposed to be making sure that people have adequate drinking water, but they can't even sit in a finance meeting and make some kind of decisions. And so that lets me know that that's why this city is suffering the way it has been suffering for so long, because of these type of council members.
Well, Virgil, we're just scratching the surface. I mean, you got to understand, and to the listeners, individuals who are elected to local offices don't necessarily have to have any experience in business. They don't have to have, I mean, there are some cities that you can even be a convicted felon to hold an office. So there's a lot of the cities, there are no guidelines or no restrictions on who can be council. Now you know, and everything is dear to when you sit on those councils. A lot of people get on those positions because they're passionate about something. Now there are those that get on because of the power. Absolutely, we know that. But I do believe that there are those that are very passionate. And what happens when you have passion and power? And you got passion, you got power, and you have the inability to disagree. Then that's a powder keg waiting to happen. And I'll say this again to the listeners. Just think about this. And I think I'm going to explain local government to to the listeners, some who may not realize this is how it goes. There's two branches of city government. There's a council. There's a city manager council form of government, which means that the mayor, the city manager, runs the day-to-day operation of the city. That city manager is hired by the mayor and the council. He presents all the finances and everything to those individuals who pass a budget and pass laws and things like that. So if you work for if you work for a city manager council form of government, the city manager is responsible for the hiring, discipline, and of all the city directors, which include police and fire, police chief and fire chief. If it's a strong mayor form of government, that means that the mayor is the CEO of the city, and the mayor he's elected, and the mayor hires pretty much all the department heads, especially the ones that have the largest departments. And so think about this. As a mayor, you hire a police chief. You got a little bit of wiggle room there because you're going to be in that office for 4 years. Unless you do something horrible, you're going to be in that office for 4 years and potentially more than that. If you're a city manager and you're at your job's at the will of the council, and they're telling you, I want the police chief fired because the police unions don't like him, or the citizens don't like him, or let me just put it bluntly, it's either your job or his. What do you think is going to happen? And so when you have these city manager form of government, and we have these type of incidents that occur, don't think that city manager is not getting pushback from those council members. The fact that who does this police chief think he is, having his guys here or his officers here to arrest us and things like that? Because when someone becomes antagonistic and they're disruptive and you expect them to follow the rule, then they become the victim all of a sudden.
Correct.
And I think Pam said that in her text, they become the victim. They're antagonistic, they're disruptive. Then when you hold them accountable, they're the victim. You're treating them bad. So now all of a sudden, law enforcement is forceful. Law enforcement is oppressive. And do your job. Do your job, but your job doesn't mean to arrest me. I do what I want to. I've even had them tell me that. I do what I want to. You work for me.
Yeah.
So why would you not think, if you have that kind of authority, that you can just do and say whatever you want to do?
Yeah.
And I still believe there should be some limits at council meetings. I do believe that people should have to sign up to speak. I do believe that individuals who live in that city or have a business in that city should be the ones speaking. I do believe that, because I believe it keeps some structure to the meeting. I do. And I really believe that the rules and laws of that council and those meetings should be posted, and everybody should be given a copy of those rules as they come into the council chambers.
Yeah. Well, and Keith, and oftentimes, you have, it may be something pertaining to the city may be trying to increase your water rates or your, trash rates or whatever it may be. And it's a very hot topic among many other things that may be on the agenda. So you have people who know that they're going to be financially impacted by a decision of the city council. Then you've got another group of citizens who they may want something repaired on their street. And that may, that's something that's been going on for years. And so when you bring all that together, and then on top of that, you've got council members who don't know how to act accordingly in a council meeting. And, Keith, I'm sure you heard this here word, Robert's Rules of Law. You got people who will jump up and holler, Robert's Rule of Law. Well, you're in a council meeting, and I don't even think too many council people really even know what Robert's Rule of Law really applies to or what it really means, but they want to use the word. And emotions happen, as we saw with this last video from Flint, Michigan, where that council member, he started attacking a police officer. And so there's another incident with this same council member with that same police officer. He was disruptive in a council meeting. He was handcuffed and he was arrested. And at some point, I believe the charges may have been dismissed or whatever. And so to me, people like that don't need to be in local government. And this is where the only way you can remove a council member is to have a recall election, if that's within the city charter.
Yeah, and then unfortunately, and people know that they have a time in that, a little bit of time in those positions, and so whether it's 2 to 4 years before they can be removed, or someone that, and then that's how you get, we're going to put somebody. I mean, man, really and truly, we've said this before. That's why I've said it's very important for communities and citizens in those communities to really participate in local elections. Because we talk about the presidential election, we talk about the U.S. Senate, we talk about the House of Representatives, we talk about all, absolutely, that's important. That's federal.
Yeah.
We understand that. But locally is where it really is.
That's the decision. Yeah.
That's the decision makers of your city taxes, what your streets look like, raises for public safety, water rates and things like that, sales tax. And I don't think people, they pay so much attention, they don't. And so I think that's how sometimes people run. I mean, I've seen local government elections be decided by 3 to 4 votes.
Yeah.
I literally have.
Well, Keith, and I'm gonna tell you this, man, and I think there's corruption in local politics.
No.
So and it's and I'm the police chief where I was at in Arkansas, very corrupt local government, very, where you had people who were voting who were dead, but you had people who worked at these polling places who knew these people didn't live, but somebody said, hey, I'm gonna slide you $20, let this person come in and vote. Now, but this person is dead. So you have, and I was the target of many issues in this former city where I was a police chief at in Arkansas and Helena, where the council members stood up and basically told the mayor, if you don't get rid of him, we're going to get rid of you.
Mm-hmm.
And so there was heated exchanges, heated arguments, and it was not healthy. It was not good. But even the people of that city knew how several council members were, but to them, it was laughable. But at the end of the day, are these people really benefiting the city that they have been elected to serve?
Well, what's their reason for wanting to run? I mean, we talked earlier about, is it a passion? Do they have an agenda or whatever? But I do think that when you have power, passion, and politics, the 3 Ps, power, passion, politics, I think that can be a hell of a collision for a disaster in some situations. Everybody can. I mean, literally, you have people who are supposed to be working together for the betterment of their of that city, mm-hmm. that are plotting and being disruptive and being disrespectful, and trying to make another person who they're supposed to be working together look bad. I think that's why I say I really want the listeners to start really paying attention to your local
elections.
Because that's where a lot of your infighting and a lot of the you can't get a lot of things done because there's so much infighting. And then also what you will see is a lot of the blatant racism come out.
Yeah.
Some of the sexism come out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of your xenophobic ideas and things come out in those meetings because somebody's going to say something. There's going to be a topic that someone on that council or that commission is against, and they're passionate about it, and they're going to say something that's going to be disruptive and cause some type of disorder or worse in a meeting. And those people have to remember that those meetings last longer than just Tuesday nights. That meeting that you have on a Monday night, Tuesday night, the effects of that resonate for
days and weeks,
or years. You know, there are cities, you're talking about Flint, there are cities that have never recovered, that have a hard time recovering when you have those type of things going on. So pay attention to, we talk about teaching our kids about voting for president and things like that. We've got to teach our kids how to be civically involved locally, and how to participate in meetings, and not, kids see, how do we expect our kids to act like they have good sense and be respectful when we're watching adults act that way? And sometimes they're kids.
Yeah. Well, and Keith, you just made a good point. How do we expect our kids to learn to become good public servants if they're not watching their parents or somebody who lives in their neighborhood be good public servants, so they one day can have aspirations to run for city council or run for mayor, whatever it may be, or city commissioner? But if they're seeing these older people attack each other and be arrested by the police, then you tainted that position where now you won't see that those younger generations wanting to become involved. And if they do become involved, it's because of what they've seen others act out.
Well, this got to the point, I said it earlier, that everybody wants to fall back on the First Amendment, and it's their right to say and do whatever they want to do. And so I'll go back and say, man, education is the key to success. And it doesn't mean anything about a 4-year degree, 2-year degree, 4-year degree. It doesn't mean anything about trade school or anything like that. It's about learning what your rights are, learning what you can do, learning what people can do to you and for you. Those are the things that I talk about, when I mean education. We don't know. We can't do that because, we better not do that, because we're going to go, well, you're not going to go to jail for doing the right thing and following within those guidelines of the Constitution. You're not going to go to jail for that. But it's when you go outside, people really believe, and they take it to a point. There's a certain person. Well, I'm not going to say person. There's a being that evolved in Little Rock that has this thing that he has First Amendment rights to say whatever he wants to you. He can say N-word, he can say whatever he wants to, and you can't do anything about it. He has that, and the course had said, well, the course didn't say that at all. The course had said over and over again that you can't be alarming with the things that you say. Yeah. And you can't have, but this being believes that. And so you take that with power, put that power making laws and having a stage. Man, that's what causes this. And people get, Berg, how would you have handled that situation with that gentleman in Flint? What would be the best way? Do you think that could have been de-escalated? Oh, definitely. Well, it could have been de-escalated, but at the same time, Keith, obviously this guy here knows he has an audience. So when somebody knows they have an audience, what can you do to de-escalate the situation? Well, I think you do. I think it's incumbent upon that whoever's running that meeting to advise that individual of what the rights are of a meeting, and they don't have rights, then that's the first thing. This is what's going to happen. This is what we expect. If they continue, then I think you go to another level of de-escalation. But at some point, you got to remove that guy. Well, either remove him, or you just say, hey, this meeting is over with. Yeah, it's got to be something, because you as a police officer, police chief, police officer, whomever, you're not going to be nothing you do, it's going to be considered right. Right. If you let him continue, you got people saying this. If you don't let him continue, you got people. So you've got to make a decision on what's best at that time to solve that situation. And sometimes you might just have to, as a police chief, as a chief law enforcement official in that, I would say, meeting is over.
Yeah.
The meeting
Well,
is
and
it's over.
Yeah, and I think that's where, you know, even the police chief taking the authority, even over the mayor, because you know the city manager the mayor and the city council are the ones that's running the council meeting, so the city manager doesn't have any say so. So even if the police chief steps outside of the scope of what some people may feel is not his duty, but to say that this meeting is over with because you just don't know where it's going to go.
It's a safety concern.
Posing a safety issue. Yeah. So Keith, I got another video to show because I know we want to make sure that we're ending our podcast right at 7 p.m. But this is another video out of Flint, Michigan that shows some of the same people, but it just goes to show you the level of dysfunction within the city government with some of the same people.
Yeah, and I say that because I think that's important because, I mean, I could say it's my view that it's okay to murder somebody, but we all know that murder is against the law.
Yeah, no, this is based on
I did say
several,
based upon your
all due respect,
right?
President Pro Tem, I have the floor.
I just wanted to say I said based
Well,
upon his experience.
well, you just jumped on another council member about interrupting, and
Sure
now you're
did.
doing it
Attacked
to me.
me, and I didn't
Did not
attack
attack you.
I have the floor.
We know you do, but I said based upon his years of
I have the
service.
floor, President
The
Pro
floor
Tem.
is out
I don't want
there.
to hear you anymore.
And you don't have to hear me. We don't have to hear you.
Then be quiet
No,
because
you
I'm
not
speaking
my
and I'm
daddy.
asking
You
a
do
question.
that at home, not here.
And not your
Okay?
father, but I am the
Exactly.
president,
So
and
treat
right
me
now I
with
have the
respect,
floor.
'cause I'm tired of that. Be respectful. You may not do that at home, but you're gonna do it up in
Stop
here.
interrupting.
You grow up. Control your house, and you know how to treat other women better.
You're the last one to talk.
I'm the first one to
Council
talk.
member.
You, Shrek.
Shrek.
Out of
Shrek.
order.
The first one to talk. Don't
You're out of
disrespect
order.
me.
Order of the
If you-
day.
I will call this to adjourn if you don't.
Do
be
it,
silent.
baby. Adjourn. Do it. Move to adjourn. Do it.
We're gonna take a brief recess.
Do it.
It's
Cause
done.
y'all not gonna disrespect me up here.
You the one that just interrupted me.
No, I did not. Yes, you did. You tried to say I said. Did I say based upon your years of service? Woo, Lord.
It's unfortunate. It's a beautiful morning until
Act grown up here.
headline.
Well, once again, we just saw how you've got a mayor who basically who's telling the woman shut up, and she calls him Shrek. So obviously, I guess she felt he looked like Shrek, and I don't even think he even knew what Shrek what a Shrek was.
Did she say Shrek or did she say trick?
She said Shrek.
Man,
Shrek.
that's wrong. You know what though? In that situation, man, he should not have to be told to end the meeting or go to a break.
Yeah.
It was like he was kind of hesitant there. There's nothing wrong with end of that meeting. I don't know where people think that if you end a meeting that you're losing. Sometimes that's the best thing to do, and it shows that you're not. You have that authority as a mayor or whoever is conducting that meeting. You have the authority to stop that meeting. You have that authority to stop that meeting, and then then a lot of times people want to know why certain things in cities and counties don't pass, because now you have this type of situation, and then people are saying, well, man, if they're acting like that, what are they doing with our tax fund? How do we know they're making the best decisions for our roads and for our water and for education and hospitals and stuff? How do we know they're doing that when they can't get along?
Yeah.
So then that's when you start having people that may not even be qualified. They'll run, and then you'll have people voting for them saying, well, yeah, they're better than what we have up there now.
Yeah.
So it's just a domino effect, Virgil, into our listeners. It's a domino effect when you have these type of incidents, and they're getting worse. I mean, I've been in those incidents. Man, I was in one where a former council member was very disruptive in a meeting, and I said, hey, come out and talk to me. They got louder and louder and louder. Finally came out and started cursing and everything. And then I said, hey, you have to go. Let's go. So I escorted them out the door. And then the next week they come in with this long scroll of how I was disruptive and disrespectful, and their support for the police department has disappeared, and things like that, because I'm following the rules and asking them not to be disruptive in the way that I did, So I've never seen a mayor in a meeting before to actually say that a meeting is too disruptive, and I've heard them come close to it, and I've seen them take a break, but I've never seen them actually say this meeting is adjourned based on the fact that it's too disruptive. I've never witnessed it personally. I've heard about it happening, but I've never witnessed it personally.
Yeah. We got Pam in the chat room who says, I say end the meeting because the folks witnessing that chaos may be traumatized by what happened. Because, Keith, and, she makes a good point, because as you know, a lot of council meetings are streamed live to the citizens. So, it's just not, you got kids who may be watching some of this actions of the adults.
I'll tell you, some of that stuff is already rehearsed, man. A lot of that stuff.
Yeah, you're right. Somebody, because going back to the city I was at in Arkansas, in Helena, you had two council members. They would get together, and they would, even in a council meeting, they would sit there and feed off of each other. And it was a game to them. It was something that they knew before they got to that council meeting how they were going to attack the mayor, attack me as a police chief, and attack anybody else, and sit back there and laugh. And because they knew they had the audience, and these were people, now Keith, a lot of council members, they may make $50 a month, or they may make $100 a month, but these council members actually received a monthly salary, which was like $700-800 a month. So when you are making $700 or $800 a month, then and maybe that's your only source of income, or you're trying to use that as supplement your income, you got an agenda, because you don't want to lose that income. You're not just there to make sure that let's just say a company is coming in saying, hey, we would like to relocate our business here. And all of a sudden they hear the chaos, and all of a sudden they say, no, we're not going to bring, say 100 jobs to your community. That 100 jobs is going to, you got people going to move in. There's a lot of other things that can happen with those 100 jobs, but they're looking and saying, no, we're going to go somewhere else.
Well, man, it's funny you mentioned that, because I remember on two occasions where I've had council members come to me and say, hey, I just letting you know, don't take it personal, but I'm gonna try to, I'm gonna kind of have to humiliate you tonight or make you look bad. My constituents are expecting that. No, I'm not. No. Man. I'm gonna fight back, and I don't mean physically, but I'm going to fight back. I'm not going to sit there and allow you to humiliate me.
Yeah.
But that happens, and just think about where we have can't do. The average citizen, man, after they get fed up with certain things, that's how fights start. Yeah, and those fights don't last. People have to remember that these individuals live in the same city.
Oh yeah,
each other. Yeah. So just because they think because it ends at the council meeting, it doesn't. Sometimes it rolls over to a restaurant. It rolls over to a football game,
neighborhood,
neighborhood, and things like that. And other people get involved. Yeah, and sometimes these local government issues roll over to state and national issues, which attract more people to these meetings. So it can be a snowball effect just based on the fact, depending on the issue and how amplified this issue has become.
Yeah. Well, hey, Keith, man, we're coming up on the last few minutes of the podcast. And so want to take this time that, obviously, next Thursday is going to be Thanksgiving. And so we will probably not. Are we going to be doing a podcast? We won't be doing a podcast. Okay.
You might be.
No,
I don't want to do one, but I think everybody wants.
Yeah,
to spend time
yeah.
with them.
So we're definitely going to be spending time with our families. So we're not going to be on next Thursday, but we definitely encourage you to check out some of our rebroadcast podcast shows on Spotify, Anchor, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts, and so many other podcast shows that you can follow us on. So, but Keith, I want to, remind people to, share with your family and friends about our podcast show and tune in and listen to some of the very informative topics that we have talked about and will continue to talk about. And brother, this is what our second year been doing this thing, man. And I think, going into 2023, we're going to be looking for the same type of momentum.
There ain't going to be no shortage of topics coming up in 2023, brother. Trust me, there ain't going to be no shortage of topics, man.
Well, I have to say, man, you've been kind of conservative with me this past year, and so now since you're retired and I'm still active, we're gonna have some topics that is going to be very engaging with some people. We're going to have some guests on the podcast.
Man,
so
you don't sit here and told the audience that I'm conservative. Now what you going to have?
Yeah, man, you conservative, man. You conservative.
You're going to have people thinking, man, that I vote for Herschel Walker. Come on, man. I am just more. I'm not conservative. I'm just more. Let's discuss it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right,
man.
Dude.
Yeah, man. I don't want no sir. No, sir.
Well, Keith, we want to just remind people there's going to be an election in Georgia that's going to be coming out. So if you got family and friends, tell people to get out and vote in Georgia. Don't just sit back and allow this guy to get elected. I mean,
you don't want that bad air to go up there with that good air.
Yeah. You don't. We don't want our kids to get a good education. We want them to. Why they got to pay for education?
Please get out and vote. Please get out. Georgia.
Yeah, if you know people in Georgia, tell them to get out and vote. So brother, it's been another great podcast, and hopefully those who have been tuned in enjoyed the topic. We want to thank Sarah. We want to thank Rodney and Pam and everybody else who's listened to us on our YouTube channel and Facebook and LinkedIn. Definitely thank you all for tuning in and listening to what we have to say. It's good to know that people value my opinion on these topics.
And you're cooking next week?
I'm cooking next week, brother.
Okay.
I am. Yeah, I'm gonna send you a deep fried Cajun turkey.
Wash your hands.
I definitely will, brother.
Okay.
All right.
All right, man.
All right. Well, hey, good night, and we will see everybody after the Thanksgiving holiday. And have a good Thanksgiving holiday. And tune in for You and the Law podcast show.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.